So, Andy, you can hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, and we're live on YouTube as well, so you'll get to pick that up after this evening.
Right, okay, so you guys, you're all right going on YouTube? There's no child benefits agencies that need to worry about you're hiding from?
We're all looking your way.
Okay.
Best behaviour. Best behaviour.
Okay, right, welcome guests as well. The theme for our business club this year is very much about improving the you in your business. So it's all about upskilling yourself. Later on this year, we're going to do a lot of stuff about staying focused and time management and etc. Tonight's session, I'm really pleased that we've been able to link up with Andy. We're doing it like this because, if I'm honest, we can't afford to bring Andy up here. Andy speaks all over the world. He's written 3 books on networking and how to grow your business through networking. He runs a regular blog. He's labelled by the Financial Times as only one of Europe's leading networking strategists. I thought he'd been the leading networking strategist, Andy.
Well, you know, journalists have to hedge their bets, Brian.
Yeah. And the Independent calls him a true master of networking. So, and he's regularly quoted in the different press when it comes to networking, and is the man that people in the UK go to. So tonight, we're linking up this way purely because I've sort of spoke to Andy and I've said the purpose of tonight is how can we, as a business club or independent business owners that meet regularly, maximise our results. So it's going to be interactive, it's going to be very questions, so if you've got questions, if there's anything that you're challenged with or struggling with regarding growing your business through networking, tonight's a good session to use the mic and just ask your questions there. So, if we just get it flowing, Andy.
Yeah, sure.
Our goal is from tonight's session is to understand how we can all improve our individual networking ability, but more importantly, as a team, how can we all really get a great return on investment from what we're doing?
Cool. Okay. I mean, the first thing, Brian, is just to stress to everyone what you just said about this session being interactive. You know, I want you to get the most out of it, and that means asking questions. So please don't be shy as we go on. In terms of the group itself, and in terms of getting the most out of it, there's things that you can do individually. And things you can do collectively. Just to add a little bit to what Brian said when he introduced me in terms of my experience, I started out in networking, working with one of the first, I guess, business referral groups in the UK, Business Referral Exchange, which was founded in 1998. I came in 1999 and became joint MD and was there for 8 years and developed all of the training there, and very much focused on the success of the group. The fact that I teach networking strategy now comes from seeing how a lot of people didn't really get as much value as they possibly could from the groups, to be honest, and I feel very passionately about that. So that's where I'm coming from in terms of the suggestions that I'll offer to you now. So the first thing I think is to know exactly what you want to get from membership. Be really, really clear about your return on investment. In fact, I wrote a blog about this morning because someone in Sweden asked me, you know, how could they persuade a cynical, skeptical boss to invest in them going to networking groups, and the answer is very clear and very simple. You have to know your objectives. You've got to know your return on membership. You need to know what you're looking to get from the group, and the more you spend time focusing on that, the more you're likely to get as a result as anyway. You know, what frustrated me no end when I was MD of BRE was that we had people who were coming along to the group because they were invited. That was the number one reason, because they were invited. They hadn't sat down and thought, what are my business needs? What are my personal self-development needs? How could other people help me? What networking groups are out there that are designed to help me in exactly what I need? And which one is the right one? They went to the one they were invited to, and then when they went along, if they liked the buzz, they joined. and then within 2 or 3 months they weren't turning up because they'd never identified a real value, a real return. So I think have those clear goals, and then the next step is to share them. Share them with other people in the group, share them with other people in your business. Get buy-in from everyone concerned. You know, in terms of the fruit tree, make sure you get buy-in with Brian. Sit down with him and explain, this is why I've joined. This is what I want to get from the group. This is where you can deliver value. Now, what do I need to bring to the table? And what are you going to bring to the table to help me get there? You know, get everyone to buy into the contract. So if you haven't done it already, one thing you could do as a group is maybe do some breakout sessions where you get into maybe groups of 3 and 4 and share your expectations, share your goals from membership, and look at how the group is helping you get to those goals at the moment. Look at what you need to bring to the table as individuals and challenge each other on what you should bring to the table as individuals to get there, and also suggest, you know, well, is there something missing? Is there something else we can do for each other to help us achieve those goals? Once you've done that, hold each other accountable. Get feedback from each other. Don't be frightened to actually turn to each other and say, look, you're not holding up your end of the bargain. And actually, you know, it's very tempting to see that as telling people they're not doing for you what you need. It should be you telling people they're not doing what they need for themselves and for the group as a whole. But in a spirit, not a spirit of accusation, but a spirit of mutual support and mutual desire for everyone to get a result. You want to get to the end of each year and have everyone in the group say, yes, I want to carry on with this because this is producing value. And you know what? If we want to grow the group, if that's something that we desire, I want to bring people along because I've got so much value, and I can verbalize what that value is. I can tell people, I can see it, and I know exactly who would benefit from it. In terms of individual meetings, so that's the overview. That's, you know, what you need to do from a strategic point of view. There's a few things you can do from a tactical point of view as well. Number one is plan and prepare for every meeting and treat it as seriously as you would a pitch meeting to a new client. You wouldn't just drive to a pitch meeting with a new client and make up your pitch on the spot. You wouldn't walk in, or I hope you wouldn't walk in and say, okay, well, what am I going to say in this session? You would plan in advance. You would do your research. You'd think, what do I want to get out of this? What are they looking for? How can I best communicate with them so that they're going to engage and they're going to want to engage with me? That's what you should be doing in terms of every meeting of the group. So plan in advance. Think about what you're looking to get on a long-term basis and from that particular meeting. And if, for example, you've got the opportunity to give a presentation at the meeting, think about it in advance, plan it. Think about what people hear rather than what you want to say. When I was running the networking groups, everyone would do a 60-second presentation every week. And all too often it was apparent that people spent the time when other people were giving their presentations thinking about what they were going to say. Then they would say it and spend the rest of the time wondering if they got their message across effectively or not, and no one was listening to anyone else. And I could walk into a group and I could tell you what people were going to say as soon as I knew what they did for a living, you know, before I'd even heard them speak. It was also predictable. And if you do that, the meetings become dull. People switch off when you speak. You switch off when everyone else speaks, and the group goes nowhere. So spend time investing, planning, and preparing. So that's one tactic. Another tactic is in terms of your commitment. Attend regularly, particularly this time of year. It's so tempting to find other things to do when it's cold outside. But get along to the meetings, arrive early, leave late. In my experience, the best networking always takes place before the bulk of people have turned up and after the bulk of people have left. That's when people are most relaxed. They're not rushing around the room. You're not running out of time because you've got to sit down for the main body of the meeting. You can relax and have good, strong conversations. So plan your diary. clear some time beforehand, maybe set up a one-to-one beforehand with another member, and then both go into the meeting just before it's due to start. And actually, obviously, if you're always evening meetings, it's not so easy, but don't rush off. Don't make plans afterwards. Be available for conversation, because you don't know what's going to happen at the very end of the meeting. I mentioned one-to-ones. Get together with each other outside the meeting. It can be one-to-one, it can be in small groups. I gave a brief presentation at a local networking group I go to at lunchtime today. Every time I go along, I give a short networking tip. And one of the things I mentioned is that the 3 or 4 minute conversations that you have at the event are merely the tip of the iceberg. You can't build a relationship on those. You can't get to know each other and really know each other in those short conversations. So if you're only relying on the meeting itself, then you're not going to build the type of relationships you need to support your business and push it forward. So diary in some time every month for one-to-ones or small groups, informal, where you get together and just get to know each other better. As you develop that relationship, those meetings might become more formal as you sit down and say, okay, how are we going to support each other? So I've just arranged with two fellows of the Professional Speaking Association, which is my main network, that we're going to meet on a regular basis and swap referrals. We're going to swap 5 referrals every month for each other. But it's taken a while to get to that. And in those meetings, the final thing is challenge each other, ask questions, really learn about each other's business, and don't be frightened to support each other in the in a, and I use the word advisably, a brutal way, not in a nasty way, but make people feel uncomfortable to a point. But you have to get to that point first. Don't turn around to someone you've just met tonight and start challenging them. But when you've got the relationship to the right place, accept that this is a safe environment in which the gloves can come off and you can challenge each other. So I hope that's a few ideas, Brian, that will help.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I want to touch, and I don't want to stop what you said here, but
I can't hear you, Brian. Can you speak into the mic a bit more?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. One of the questions I wanted to ask us, yeah, we do suggest, I totally agree. It's not, I say to people that you don't do business in the meeting, we just celebrate the success in the meeting.
Yeah.
You do the business away from the meeting. But quite often when you have one-to-ones, it's easy just to, and there's nothing wrong with having just a general chat, but what would you suggest in terms of how you get the best out of a meeting away? So a one-to-one meeting, what would you suggest in terms of format, or what works best?
My personal preference, I very rarely go in with an agenda. Unless we've agreed an agenda, there's something we're going to partner on or work on. I'll rarely go in with a specific agenda. I had one today, and it's someone who has given me a couple of recommendations. I did want to follow up on those. I also wanted to talk to her about turning them into referrals rather than recommendations, something where people expected my call and I could take more control. And we both knew that we wanted to know about each other's business in a bit more depth and see how we could help each other more. The fact that she's recommended me twice before our first one-to-one, we've met at a number of networking events and she has seen me speak. But the fact that she was willing to do that already gave us the launch pad. But I didn't go in with a formal agenda. So we sat, we chatted a bit, we talked about what we had in common, which is the network we both belong to. And then she asked me about my business. I explained it in more detail. We talked about the referral she'd passed. She offered a couple of others. And then, as is courteous, I asked about her business, and I started to look at how could I help her in return. So that was where we were in the relationship. Jenny and I have known each other, although not well, but we've known each other for probably over a year now. So we felt we could do that. I met someone today, I think I spoke to him briefly at this local event about 2 or 3 months ago. Met him again today. We had a longer conversation. I asked for his card this time and I said, well, let's meet up. I wouldn't sit down with him at that one-to-one and say, okay, tell me about your business and who can I refer you to? Because I don't know him yet. I haven't got that history with him. I want to get to know him. I'll find out something about the business, but my main focus will be getting to know the person. So I won't go in with an agenda. I'll go in and have a conversation, have a cup of coffee or lunch with someone, and just relax. And I think the more you do that, the less, in the right way, the less business-like and formal you are, and the more sociable and informal you are, the more that you'll get out of it. So don't become obsessed with agenda. I think you'll know in your gut where you are in the relationship and when it's right to start moving to that cooperative level, if you like. But the first step is to get to know each other. You know, when I teach referrals, I talk about 3 key factors that someone needs to have in place before they're ready to refer you. And that's high level of trust or willingness to refer, high levels of understanding, and high levels of opportunity. And opportunity people either have or you haven't, although you can point them the right way to where the opportunity lies with the questions you ask. But if someone is 3 out of 10 for willingness to refer me, my goal from the meeting isn't to get them to refer me. My goal from a meeting is to get them to 4 or 5 out of 10, and then over time I'll get them to 6, 7, 8, 9, and then I'll ask for referrals. So I think you have to know where you are in the relationship.
What about people that are uncomfortable in the networking environment, or maybe uncomfortable asking for help and assistance or referrals? Because, you know, I think another thing that I wanted to ask is, do you think networking is a skill or it's a characteristic of the person? So is a good networker somebody who's studied it hard, or are certain people just more successful at it because of their character?
Yeah, there will always be people that are more natural as networkers and more comfortable. You said it's all about being comfortable in the environment. That's not to say it's not a skill that can't be learned. You know, to be honest, I've been doing this for 16 years. I naturally network in the terms of socializing, talking to people, connecting people. But I walk into a room full of strangers, and like most people, I hate it. You know, even though I've written a book about it and I teach people how to do it, I'm not necessarily comfortable there, despite 16 years of doing it. I've probably been to more networking events than you all will collectively, you know, for your lives. And that's not being arrogant. That's just because that's my job. That's my office. You know, I spent 8 years going to 4 breakfast meetings a week, and then speaking at a number of other events as well, and then the next 8 years speaking at networking events. So that's the environment I spend a lot of my time in, but I'm not naturally comfortable in it. Once I get myself into the environment, I'm absolutely fine. The key is that I know what to do. I know how to get over the discomfort, and I know how to relax into the environment. So some people walk into a room full of strangers and they're in their natural element. My best friend, I've seen him walk up to people at train stations and on trains and on buses and start chatting to them. That's not me. He's more extrovert, I'm more introvert. So natural personality makes it easier for people, but it doesn't necessarily make them better networkers. So in answer to the last part of your question, you can learn more, and natural personality, the more introverted style can actually make you a better networker. You may be less comfortable, but you'll listen to people more. Extroverts will talk, introverts will listen, and one of the biggest skills of networking is listening and taking yourself out of the equation and looking out for other people rather than for yourself. Extroverts want to be the center of attention. I'm generalizing here, and we're talking, you know, no one's black and no one's white, but you know, we've all got different levels of this within us. But the extrovert part of you wants to be the center of attention. The introvert part of you doesn't, which makes you listen and start thinking about other people. That's the part you really want to be dominant once you're in conversation. So on the face of it, people think extroverts are the natural networkers, but it's not necessarily the case. You asked about feeling comfortable asking for referrals, which is a slightly different thing. Again, someone who's extrovert may feel much more comfortable asking, but they may get the timing completely wrong. You know, going back to the point I mentioned before, you have to build the relationship first. You have to build that trust, that willingness to refer, so that you ask at the right time. So sometimes you have to put the brakes on. Someone asked me a party just before New Year, if I would refer her, I'd only just met her. I didn't know her. And I already use someone and refer someone for the services she offers. She got the timing completely wrong. So she was comfortable asking for referrals, but her comfort made me uncomfortable because she got the timing wrong. However, there comes a point where you do need to ask. And a challenge for a lot of people is that they feel vulnerable asking, they feel uncomfortable asking, they feel they're a burden asking for referrals. Can I just check, are you still there? Because your image has come off screen. If you're on YouTube, fast forward. The internet connection has gone down in Doncaster. We have you back.
Yay! Can you hear us?
I can hear you
I knew
fine.
that. I was saying the biggest fear and the technology might.
No
Right,
problem.
okay.
No
We'll
problem.
people maybe slightly uncomfortable networking.
Yeah, I think I'd got as far. I was talking about people asking for referrals, wasn't I? Had you got?
So we got cut off just around the before that. We said about those that are uncomfortable networking are asking for referrals, etc. And I think that's about where we got cut off.
I probably spent about 4 or 5 minutes on that answer. Did you hear none of that? About I was talking about.
Okay.
I saw the image drop off the screen out the corner of my eye, and I thought it was only a few seconds later I asked if you were still there. I was talking about introverts and extroverts. Did you get any of that?
No.
Right. Okay. So, for anyone watching back on YouTube, fast forward through this. Okay. So, I was talking about. Did you get where I talked about my own discomfort when I'm networking?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, in summary, I think a lot of people think that natural networkers are extroverts. That's not necessarily the case. It is easier for an extrovert person to walk into that scenario where you've got a room full of strangers and just approach them. It's very difficult for an introvert. The introvert wants to hide in the corner of the room and get their iPhone out or anything but to face that scenario. But networking isn't just about your comfort approaching. It's more about how you interact once you're in that conversation. And introverts, or the introvert part of you, is much stronger in that scenario. An extrovert wants to put themselves at the center of the conversation. An introvert doesn't. So what the introvert does is listen rather than talk. Take themselves out of the equation, recognize opportunities for other people rather than think what's in it for me. That for me is better networking than just the confidence to approach people. So the point I was making there was you might feel uncomfortable in some networking scenarios, but that doesn't make you a bad networker, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't be networking. It means you just need to know the tactics to overcome that fear. You just need to know how to get beyond that, and it is just that first point. Once you're in conversation, most people tend to be fine. So that was the first part of the answer. The second part that I'd moved on to was when you asked me the question, Brian, you mentioned about feeling comfortable about asking for referrals, and a lot of people find it uncomfortable. If you have a group scenario, as you do, and people ask a group, that's a lot easier, but it's a lot less productive. If I turn around to you as a group and ask you for a referral, it's easy enough for any one of you individually to duck my question because I'm not asking you individually. But if I ask you one-to-one, I'm more likely to get results because it begs an answer from each and every one of you as I ask you in turn. But that's not comfortable for a lot of people. So we hold back from asking for referrals, A, because we feel it makes us look vulnerable, it makes us look weak, and B, because we feel we're being a burden to other people by asking them for referrals. Well, let's look at each of those in turn. In terms of looking vulnerable, if I turned around, it's all about how you frame the question. If I turn around to you and say, look, my business is really struggling at the moment, I've just lost 6 clients because I just haven't delivered what I promised I would do. And we're on the verge of going bust. So look, can you help me with any introductions at all? I don't sound too confident and strong, and I'm not going to instill confidence in you, am I? But if I turn around to you and say, look, I've just delivered this contract to, let's say, to Coca-Cola, and I've trebled their turnover in 6 months, they're absolutely delighted. I know Pepsi Cola have the same challenge, and I know you know someone at Pepsi. Do you think it might be helpful if I had a chat with them? I might be able to do the same thing for them. Does that sound vulnerable? Does that sound weak? It doesn't, does it? So it's how you frame the question. And in terms of being a burden, think about the last time you referred someone, and think about a recent referral that you've given that's turned out to be productive and successful, and that person has benefited and they've got new business as a result, or they've got a new job, or whatever it may have been. How did it make you feel? How many of you felt, oh, well, they were being a burden, I did it, but they were being a pain? Or how many of you felt pleasure at having passed a successful referral? We feel pleasure when we refer people and it becomes successful. We actually enjoy it. Most people, I believe, actually enjoy giving referrals more than getting them. So change your mindset. You're not being a burden if you ask for referrals, if you ask the right person when the relationship has been built and in a way that makes it easy for them. Quite the opposite. If you don't ask, you're denying them pleasure. And if you can see it like that, then you can be more comfortable asking, but you've just got to get the timing right. And your job is to make it as easy as possible for people to refer you. If you can do that, you're not being a burden.
We'll go out then. Leading on to something before we hand it over to the other guys.
Yeah.
What's the best way of communicating to others how they can help you then?
The best way of communicating to others how they can help you, I would say it's to step into their shoes, to see things from their perspective. What we tend to do is say things as we see them. What we need to do is see things from, if we stay on the topic of referrals, because the ways people can support you is more than just referrals. So maybe I'll come back to another way at the end. But in a referral situation, you need to see things from the perspective of your champion, the person who's going to refer you, and you need to see things from the perspective of your prospect, the person you want to be referred to. When I go to networking groups and I hear these 60-second presentations, all too often I hear, I want to meet this business because I believe I can do this and I this and I that. I've got a consultancy with a client tomorrow. I've printed off their About Us page on their website and I've highlighted in one colour everything where there's I, us, we, our, and I've highlighted in another colour every time they say you, your. And it must be 6 or 7 to 1 in favour of talking about themselves. And we do that when we ask for help as well. I want to achieve this, I want to do that. Your prospect doesn't care about you. They don't know you. You need to talk about them and what's going to motivate them. And if you can communicate that to your champions, then that makes it easier for them. Because then it turns from them doing you a favour into them doing a favour for someone else and you're making them look good. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is to speak in their language. All of us have jargon in our own businesses. Language that we speak daily, we just see as common English, but actually someone outside our industry, someone outside our business wouldn't know what on earth we're talking about. You know, how many people do you think I talk to and you guys talk to on a regular basis who if you say networking to them, they think you're talking about computers? You know, that's their perspective of it. So you need to understand the language they understand. And I talk about taking the 10-year-old test, where you explain to a 10-year-old who you want to meet and why they would want to meet you, and then get them to repeat it back to you in their own words. And by the way, just in case I get sued, I recommend it's a 10-year-old that you actually know rather than a random one. But if you explain that to a 10-year-old and get them to repeat it back to you in their own words, you'll know whether your message is effective or not, because that's about the attention span you've got for someone outside your industry. If you're talking to an intermediary, so Brian, if you're talking to an accountant, that might be different because you speak the same language, but you need to recognize that first. And even if you're not looking for referrals, so I said there's other means of support. If you need help in your business, you need to communicate it. You need and this is what the fruit tree provides. You need a close circle, a trusted circle of people that you can be honest with, and you can say, I need help. I've always been members for the last, I'd say 10 years. I've been members of various mastermind groups, and I know you guys do an element of masterminding in your meetings where you're sharing your challenges and asking for support. And in one of my mastermind groups, we had a guy who would come along every month and say everything was great, everything was fantastic, and then 10 months in, we found out he was on the verge of bankruptcy, but he was too proud to share it with us. And this is where pride needs to take a back seat, because you have to have a safe environment where you can be honest and say, I don't know the answer. I honestly don't know. I need help. This is going wrong. I've got that wrong. What would you do? And I think people respect that. So I think another part of the answer to your question is, how do you make it easy for people to help you? You're honest with them. But you might not, again, you might not do that with someone you met 5 minutes ago, but that's where you have those one-to-ones and small group meetings and build the relationship so that you can develop that level of trust.
Yeah, I've got a question about, at the outset you said that you need a plan.
Yeah.
So where do you start with a networking plan?
Okay, you need to understand how networks can help you and what you want to achieve. I believe that networking offers three generic benefits. This is very broad brushstrokes, but I think that networks offer three key benefits. This is business networks, and that is to help you become better known, better equipped, and better connected. So that's better known, better equipped, better connected. So what I mean by that, in terms of better known, let me give you examples of each. It's probably the easiest way. I've lived where I live in Hertfordshire, a place called Broxbourne, for probably 13, 14 years now. But I don't have networks here. You know, for a number of the years when I first moved here, I was running a national business network. So I was staying in hotels, I was going to breakfast meetings at 7 o'clock in the morning all over the UK and occasionally overseas. So I was never here. I didn't go to the local pub because I was too tired when I got back. I don't have kids. I don't go to a church. I don't have those roots, and I didn't network locally. Since I sold that business, my clients have been everywhere but locally. So I felt that I was better known in Bucharest than Broxbourne because I've done more work there. And I felt, well, I need to raise my profile. So the lunch I was at today, bless you, the breakfast meeting that I'm going to next Tuesday, meeting I was at on Friday in the local area, are all designed to raise my profile. I haven't asked for any business from it yet. I haven't sought any business. I have had referrals, which is great, but that hasn't been the primary goal. The goal has been to get my name out there, to get some roots in the local community, the local business community, and get some recognition. And that seems to be happening now, and that's the key. But it's a long-term strategy for me. But I've picked three key networks where I like the people there. I get to see the same people. I can go reasonably regularly, but I don't have to be there every month or every week because I can't, given the nature of my work. So that's about raising profile. And it's about, number one, getting people to know who I am. Number two, getting them to trust me. And then they might buy from me or, more importantly, refer me. But that takes time. It's a long-term approach, long-term strategy. And that works for me because I can't commit to a more frequent group because my work takes me traveling the whole time. So that's one example. That's networking to become better known. Ivan Meisner, who founded BNI, has a process for networking he calls VCP. And these are the three stages of networking. And this exactly describes how I'm approaching my profile building networking locally. You network to become better. VCP is visibility, credibility, profitability. So the first thing I'm doing is just getting my face out there and building a network, having those one-to-ones. Then as people meet me, talk to me, look at my blogs, see me speak, because I'm taking opportunities to speak at those meetings as well, I build credibility, I build trust. And once those are really effectively in place, I can start to leverage that network, but not before. So that's one part of it. Then there's networking to become better equipped. So I talked about the mastermind groups and the challenge sessions that you have in your meetings. Now that's where a network can help you become better equipped by giving you feedback, by letting you bounce ideas off them, to hold you accountable, which I talked about earlier, to give you industry knowledge. So I'm looking to develop some products for the hotels industry. So I have been networking in the hotels industry, not for referrals at this stage, but for knowledge, for information, to work out what the challenges are, to understand who the economic buyer is, to know what that person is thinking. You know, I don't just walk up to a niche and say, that'll be a really good niche for me. give me the sales and marketing director and I'll start selling. I explore, and the way I explore, the way I learn, is by building a network of people in that industry. So that's a good example of networking to become better equipped as well. And then there's networking to become better connected, and that's the referral part, where you're, in terms of a networking group, you need those regular meetings. You need to build strong levels of trust. You need the opportunity to explain what referrals you're looking for, so that you can drive those back. So those are the three types. So when you're talking about putting your plan together, what you say is, what are our biggest needs in our business at the moment? What do we need to do to fulfill those needs? So if your need is more business, you may say, well, we need to have a strong network we can leverage referrals from in the medium term. I would never say short term for referrals. You need to build the trust first. But we also need to get our name out there more widely. So we want a mixture of profile building and referral building networks. Then you can go and look at the various groups and online networks and your existing network and say, what are the right strategies for us to achieve that? Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Right, moving away from the type of environment of how we network, Andy, which is a membership base where we meet regularly, do everything you've said really, which is get to know each other past the business cards, state where we become friends, and have that ability to say, I want to help you because you're a friend, not a business person. What about if we go a step outside of that into things like online networking then, using LinkedIn, social media sites, what are your suggestions and strategies for that?
Well, I think the first thing is that the two aren't distinct and separate from each other. So any networking strategy should involve both, ideally. Heather Townsend, who wrote the Financial Times Guide to Business Networking, talks about joined up networking, and that's joining up with and when I say face-to-face networking, I mean relationships generally. It doesn't have to be just formal groups. It can be professional relationships and personal relationships as well. I think that when you look at online networks, you can classify them in the same way that I've just explained for physical. So that you look at networks that help you become better known. Twitter is a very good example of that. Twitter is very viral in the way people retweet things. It helps people understand what you do a lot more as well. So with Twitter, we put out a lot of content in terms of just networking tips, blogs, videos, and so forth. A personality will come through as well. I will tweet just thoughts and so forth, but you will get a regular stream of 140 character tips, links to blogs, links to YouTube videos, and so forth. Twitter's very good for that, and then they get retweeted. LinkedIn has an element of that as well. So I'm a writer on LinkedIn Pulse, which is the main blogging platform there. And the blog I wrote on there on Saturday about the article in the Times about networking being dead, I mean, that's had 500, 600 views. And as a result of that, now here's an interesting example. Networking's become better known online. So for those of you who didn't see it, there was an article in the Times on Saturday saying networking is dead, says best connected man. Now the so-called best connected man is a guy called Rich Stromback in the States, who he's an investor. And at the Davos, at the World Economic Forum, he holds a lot of parties that a lot of influential people go to. And he's written a piece in the Harvard Business Review, which is about networking, but he talks very similar stuff to me. He talks about not going into these big conferences where everyone is very false and they're networked, and the Times have jumped on that and said networking's dead, and that's not what he said, and it's not the truth. So I wrote a blog in reply to that, and that went on to LinkedIn. Someone on Facebook asked for my thoughts on it, and I posted there. Someone on that post, and there's been about 50 comments on that post last time I looked, just that post. Someone tagged in Rich Stromback in the States. He added me as a friend on Facebook, and we started chatting. So just by using social media to get a blog out there, I'm now connected with the guy the Times say is the best connected man in the world. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it's just an interesting example of how it all fits together. What you also see using online networks like LinkedIn and Facebook, as soon as he added me and I looked at his profile, I can see who we know in common. So we have two people we both know, and so when I started chatting with him, as well as chatting about the Times article, we chatted about the two people we know in common, immediately establishing common ground. So what social networks give you is information to help you start a conversation. So I think that's very effective as well. Networking to become better equipped online, LinkedIn groups are a great example of that. Facebook groups as well to a degree, Twitter hashtags, but LinkedIn groups are probably the best. So going back to this example of wanting to understand a client's industry well or establish a niche, you can join groups in that niche, you can ask questions, you can lurk and just watch what people are talking about, what their challenges are, and understand it a little bit better. And you can see who the biggest players are, who the biggest influencers are. And then LinkedIn I'd come back to again for better connected, because it's very powerful for getting referrals, but most people don't realize it. So just to give you an example of how it works, I was in Vancouver in December of last year, and before I went onto LinkedIn and I did a search, and I typed in sales directors in the Vancouver area who are second degree connections to me, which means they know someone I know. And I had 89 results. And I have never been to Canada before, let alone Vancouver. And here I am, one introduction away from 89 people who fit the criteria I'm looking for. Among those were the global head of, I'm trying to think of his job title, corporate marketing. He was the senior vice president of global corporate marketing for Hootsuite, big social media company based in Vancouver. Another one was the head of diversity for HSBC Canada, and they're a big client of mine in the UK in the diversity space. And I reached out to both of those people through our intermediaries, and both of them met me for breakfast the following week. Now that's a phenomenal response. Another part of the world, very senior people, complete strangers, meeting you for breakfast a week later to talk business, because of the quality of the introduction. But LinkedIn gave me the research. It gave me the information I needed to get those referrals. So LinkedIn is very powerful for becoming better connected. But just one more thing on that, actually, Brian. I started by saying about joined up networking and Heather's concept, and I think this is a really good point, because the two work in tandem very well. So I was at another local networking lunch on Friday. One of the people I met there is very active on Twitter, so we followed each other on Twitter straight away. She also connected with me on LinkedIn today, I think it was, today or yesterday. So we've had 2 positive interactions on social media since we met on Friday. Do you think I'm more likely to remember her next time we meet now that we're connected in 2 other places than if we'd have just exchanged cards and a couple of emails and left it until the next event? Of course, we're more visible to each other, so we're more likely to find ourselves fully within each other's networks more quickly.
I've gone all about chat-up lines, really. If there's something that you really want to talk to, but you sort of, how do you think of the first thing to say to them?
So you did say chat-up lines.
Yeah.
I thought I heard that right. It's quite funny you say that, because what's the normal first question anyone asks anyone else at a networking event?
What do you do?
What do you do? And I always call what do you do the networking equivalent of do you come here often. People aren't interested, it's an icebreaker. And I don't think there's a worse time to ask someone what you do than when they don't care, or when you don't care. There's not a worse time to be asked what do you do than when that other person doesn't care. We're getting into what I call the networking dance, where one person asks the other what do you do, the other person replies with their elevator pitch designed to sell to that person even though they never met them, and the problem is the person that's asked them is trying to sell to them, so you've got a bit of a clash. Now if you ask me what do I do, and I give you my elevator pitch, what are you thinking while I'm giving my elevator pitch?
That's an elevator pitch in practice.
Possibly, but you. Sorry.
That the recipient feels inferior, because if you're a new networking person, your confidence will weak. If you've got, you know, a connection and you're talking and you're away, then fine. But if you're sort of a new networking person, you feel inferior. You've got the confidence to talk.
It's possible as well, because it's not a natural conversation, and so it's not comfortable. We're going back to this comfort area as well. What a lot of people are thinking is, when are you going to finish? Because when you finish, then you're going to ask me, what do I do? And I can give you the elevator pitch, and that's all I'm interested in. And that's not a good place to be. And that doesn't lead to enjoyable conversations, relaxed networking, or relationship building. So I actually think, in answer to your question, the best opening line is, do you come here often? I wouldn't necessarily use those words. They may be misinterpreted. You want to get common ground. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
So we're all just laughing.
Okay. You want to find common ground. And what you have in common is not what you do. What you have in common is where you're at. So if you're to say to someone, are you a member of this group, or is this your first visit, or who invited you along, obviously in a not an accusing way, a nice way, then you've got a conversation, because whatever the answer is, you've got somewhere to go. If you go up to someone at a networking event, and let me ask, have we got an accountant in the room?
He's not here.
Okay.
We do have Colombo, he's not here tonight.
So when someone says to him, what do you do, and he says, I'm an accountant, how do you think most people respond to that? Where's the conversation going to go? You're not interested, and I pick on accountants, particularly when they're not there, but it's easy to do so, but it's true for all of us. Other people aren't interested in what we do, so if we tell them what we do, they haven't got anywhere to go with the conversation. If we talk about the event we're at, there's a natural place to go. So whether it's, have you been to these events before? Are you a member? What brought you along? What did you think of the speaker? Whatever it may be, we've got somewhere to go with that. In the specific case you asked me about, if there's someone you specifically want to meet, then I would assume you know something about them already, and you've got something you want to talk about. That's slightly different. So I would approach them, and it really depends on the situation and who they are, but I would approach them and say, I'm glad I've caught you, I wanted to ask you something, and then ask them a question. And that's slightly different, because you are interested in what they do, or you are interested in the answer to that question. And Dale Carnegie said, the sweetest sound to any man is the sound of his own name. And he also said, people are interested in people who are interested in them. So if you go up and ask someone something about themselves, or for their opinion, or anything about that, they're going to want to engage with you. So that's a slightly different scenario, but hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you.
We've got about 5 minutes left, Andy. What I'd like to know is how can members get more business from their existing clients? So these are people who trust them, hopefully like them because they've done business with them, and then how can they use that platform to get referrals from clients?
Okay. Well, there'd be two answers to the question. The first one is ask. It's amazing how many surveys I see. In fact, I've got one in my inbox from a client that I want to share in a blog probably next week, about how many of their clients, when asked, say they would be happy to refer, compared to how many actually refer. And they call it an advocacy gap. And I think the gap is huge. It's something like 80+% of their clients last year, when surveyed, said they would be happy to refer, but only 46% of them actually had done. So one of the main reasons is people aren't being asked, and asked in the right way. These were wealth managers, financial advisors, and they'll be asking at the end of a client review when it's not appropriate. I would always advise, ask outside a transaction where you're delivering to that client. You know, if we got to the end of this session and I said, by the way, who can you refer me to, you'd think that completely inappropriate. If, however, I got to know any of you individually and in a separate conversation I said, look, would you help me out, etc., etc., that would be absolutely fine if I timed it right, but not when I'm delivering to you. And I think that too often people throw in what we call the Colombo Close, the just one more thing at the end of a client meeting, or even a prospect meeting, which is even worse. So your requests for referrals from clients should be natural, and they should be specific. The biggest problem, I think, beyond the one I've just outlined that people aren't asking at all, the biggest problem when people do ask for referrals from clients is that they're general. You know, is there anyone else you know who might benefit from what I do? Who do you think you could introduce me to? You're asking your clients to do more work for your business than you're willing to do yourself. And that's not right. You should boil it down for them. If you know them, if you've built a relationship with them, you should know who they could introduce you to. And that's who you should ask for. One person. Make it, you know, I said earlier, your job is to make it easy for people to refer you. You do that by being very specific, and asking for just one referral, one person. But if I said to you, is there anyone you know? Or if I said to you, you know that person at Pepsi Cola, would you introduce me? The latter is the more likely one to be delivered. So be specific. I said there's two parts to the answer, and the second part is don't expect referrals from your clients and don't focus only on your clients. I think a lot of people wear blinkers and we think the only places our referrals come from are clients and intermediaries. Now, I wrote a blog in the summer, 3 reasons why your clients won't refer you or don't refer you. Number 1 is because you don't ask, and they go back to their desk and they're focused on other things. They're not interested in you. You know, however good the service you deliver, they go back to their desk and they carry on with their life. We seem to believe that if we do a really good job, our clients drop everything and think, who could I refer them to? They don't. They carry on. And the second one out of the 3 that I wanted to stress now is your clients do not have a vested interest in your success. They do not have a vested interest in your success. If you are successful, your clients perceive that they will get less attention. So why is it your clients that you're asking for referrals from? Why aren't you asking your suppliers? People who do have an interest in your business growth, but who very few people ask for referrals. They probably know your business as well as your clients do, in some cases more so, but we don't ask them for referrals in the same way. And just for record, the third reason your clients don't refer you is because there's a relationship of servitude in a client relationship, and it's you serve them, not the other way around. And some people seem to expect referrals from clients. Some people put it in contracts, but that's not the relationship. The relationship should be the other way around. They're paying you money. You should be delivering to them. You serve them. If you build a strong relationship and you deliver and you're in a position to ask, that's fine, but don't expect it. So there are ways you can ask, but I just wanted to stress, look beyond, look to your suppliers, look to your networking contacts, former work colleagues, family, friends, social contacts, because they all have interactions with the people you want to meet as well, unless you're in a very, very specific line of work. And even then, the people you want to meet also have a personal life. So the people you know in your whole network have a life beyond the life they have with you, and I think you need to be aware of that as well.
I'm impressed with what I've heard. I think you've covered a great deal of points in there, and it's all been noted down and taken in.
So I just missed the end of that, sorry.
Just say it's all been noted down and taken in, and will be imbibed and cogitated over and deployed.
Excellent. That's great to hear. And if you can stand the long gap in the middle when the internet went down and the repeat of a couple of points, this will be up on YouTube as well. Brian, the YouTube link is on the Hangout event page I sent you with the first link. So you'll have the YouTube link there, and this will be live now on YouTube, so you can go straight to it.
Okay. wrap up, the two things I've got from this is, number one, have a strategy. I'm as guilty as probably most people in the room, is that you just go along and do it, and you've got an idea of what you should be doing, and you see what happens. Whereas listening to you, who are an expert in this, you know what the outcome you want, and then you'll look at the strategy. But then the other thing that I think is important, and it's one of my favourite words, is it's done with authenticity.
Yeah.
It's not manipulative in any way. There's got to be a relationship there. It's you know, win-win to some degree. So it's mutually beneficial. And I think you know, that's the thing that I've sort of got tonight, is have that strategy so you know what you're trying to achieve, and it doesn't happen by mistake or accident. But as well, be yourself and be authentic, and you know, that's what I've picked up tonight. Anybody got anything to say before we wrap up?
I'd just like to say that I think that's a really good point that you made about your existing clients not really being that interested. I mean, I called Sky the other day. It was some really good service from Sky. When I put the phone down, I didn't think, right, I'm going to phone all my friends and tell them how good Sky is. And then, what else? I had a good service from Sky, so if Sky was to look, I'd just go and get a contract with BT. I think I've been a bit guilty of that. I thought, oh, my customers think I'm the bee's knees and refer me and, you know, providing such a good service. Well, in reality, when I've had a chat to them and done whatever I've done for them, they just kind of dig their life and don't think about me anymore. And that's a really good point, mate.
Andy, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
No.
My
Okay.
pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you ever so much.
Thanks for having me on. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Yeah. Okay. Good luck with Charlton.
We need it at the moment. All the best. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.